Right, so we are going to now learn about unity and what unity means. So unity is a sense of whole. So we can see when we're looking at this picture what makes it unified, and in this case there's some repetition of the same shape over and over, the same colors, the same textures, and so that's what we really want to look for with unity, is a feeling of wholeness. So because there's similar elements over the whole image, we now can connect them. We don't think of each pie individually at the beginning. When we just glance at this, we think about the whole image, and then we start examining each pie individually. So another word for unity is harmony. Harmony or unity arises not merely from recognition, but also from the repetition of similar shapes and colors. And this is can also be the repetition of art elements, so mark, shapes, color, texture. So something that makes it all come together. So here's an example of our elements being repeated over and over in an abstract image. So there's lines repeated, these clouds, forms repeated over and over again. Okay, so this is the most important part to understand with unity. The whole must predominate over the parts. So when you look at an image, you want to look at the whole thing. And so you're looking at the whole image, and you take in all of it at once, and then you look at the parts. If the image is not unified, what happens is you start looking at individual elements first, then you take in the whole. And you do not want that in your imagery. You want the whole first, then the parts. Okay, so an example of this is the Paris Opera House, and you can see when there's a lot of detail and a lot of things going on in this image, but the first thing we look at is the whole place, the whole opera house, and then we start going in and realizing that there's different statues and columns and windows and those things. But if we notice all of this, it's very balanced, so it's symmetrically balanced. We'll talk about in another project, but this side is the same as this side, and there's the repetition of similar elements throughout. So even though there's a lot going on, that repetition makes us look at the whole. Also, there's what's called continuation, and that's this line going up there, right? It drags our eye across this way from one side of the building to the next, and we also have that with these lines like this and like this. And that's called continuation, and it drags our eye across the image, or in this case, the opera house. And now we have scanned the whole thing before we look at the individual parts. Conceptual unity is different. So you could have an image that's all about dogs, let's say. I just made that up, but conceptually it's unified. There's a whole bunch of dogs, but visually it might not be unified. So just because something has something connecting it all conceptually does not mean that the picture itself will be unified. Okay. All right, so let's look at this image. It's a very unified image, and we're going to look at why. So we have, the first thing I notice is the four girls. They all have white on, and so that brings our eye to all four of them. The second thing I notice are the vases. So these vases are eye pops from one vase to another. Then if you look harder, there's more vases back here. Those are similar shaped vases. So again, our eye looks from this one to this one, then back here. So that pops our eye around. So this pops our eye like this. The girls and the dresses kind of makes this circle. The vases make this circle. Another element is the red. So there's this reddish orange here, red here, and this pink here. They're all similar enough that, again, our eye goes this direction. So we have this circle, this triangle, right? So our eye is constantly going around this way. Another element is the blue rug, which again connects to the blue in the vases, so our eye kind of moves this way. And also it has a directional element with the line, so it points our eye. So once we come down here to her, now our eye is pointed up to her and then over. So even if we're wandering off the main areas, we get pushed back into what we're meant to look at. And then another element that creates this to be unified is the fact that the background is all mostly brown. So that brown unifies the whole thing. So now we look at this painting. There's lots of different parts, but we look at the whole first, and then we start digesting the small elements. Okay, so there's three main ways to create unity, and we've pretty much gone over them, but we'll go over them in detail. This is proximity, repetition, continuation. You want to remember these because you're going to make every project you make in this class, you want to be unified. The next project we do will be specifically about unity. So proximity, repetition, continuation. Repetition is the one that students remember. Proximity and continuation, students forget. So make a note that you want to know all of those. We will talk about what they are. So proximity is just that separate elements are close together. Very simple, right? So we look at this image, we look at the parts of this first because they're separated. Here, they're close together, they become one, and then we digest the fact that they're different elements. So when you look at this painting, all of the figures in this painting are connected together by their proximity, and so we kind of our eye leads from person to person and kind of goes this direction. And because they're close together, there is repetition in color and texture and different things, but it's really that proximity of the men that keeps our eye kind of going around and around. And we see the men as kind of a whole, like our eye, I mean, our mind knows they're separate, but our eye kind of sees them as a whole thing at first for a second, which gives us the idea that this is one image, and then we start paying attention to the differences. Okay, repetition is very simple. It's just repeated element or image throughout the whole image. So here are these, like, I think of them as apple core shapes repeated over and over again. In this image, it's not as simple, but the repetition becomes the lines. So there's these lines on his face and the lines in the background, and those are repeated over and over again, pulling the whole image together. Okay, continuation is a really important one that students forget a lot about. So continuation is a line or an edge that continues throughout the image. And why this is important is, here's a very simple one. It's not the only one, but we'll talk about this first, this line up here. Why this is important? Because it scans and connects the image together. So now the image is all one because we're scanning from right to left. A more complicated version of that is through here, up the blanket, around the woman, around here, over here, down, 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 up, over, and back up. Same for this. We go down here, over here, kind of this direction right there. And so our eye is scanning from one side to the left. We might not notice, like this top one is kind of obvious, but for a lot of them, we might not notice what we're doing, but it is still directing our eye. And as we scan the image, we're being directed and pushed together. Now, artists usually use multiple things. So in this one, the artist is also using proximity, right? All the furniture, everything that the people, all of it is touching. And so that is proximity. So most artists use at least, well, they use at least one way of creating unity, but usually 2 or 3 ways of creating unity. Here's a very simple one. The line next, the continuation line next to the pond. So this line here, and then this too really helps because we move this way and then we actually connect this without even realizing it, go down here. Same for over here, the horizon line. So all of that is continuation. You're going to be working on a mark. I'm going to skip past this. You're going to be working on a personal mark or logo. And one of the things to keep in mind is when we do continuation, there's a lot of ways, but one simple way is having a shape around it, like a circle or a square or a diamond. That creates continuation. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, for Albert Dürer, he's a 16th century artist, and he created this personal mark for himself. So let's talk about it. It has all three ways of creating unity. It has proximity, right? The A and the D are close together. The D is actually within the A. It has repetition, so it has these little shapes on the A that are repeated. The width of the line is similar, so that's also repetition. And then it has continuation, so the A or I moves up and over and down. So all three of these are shown. So here's an example of monograms. So like the last one, these are all monograms, meaning that they use the initials of their name to create it. So you, in your design, in your logo, you are going to create you do not have to use your initial, but it's a good place to start because you can play with the letters and design something with those letters. So it's up to you if you want to use the letters of your name, but it's a good place to start if you're not sure what to do. So here's 4 examples of that. Personal logos. Some of these use the artist's name, but they don't have to. So this is just a logo that represents yourself, maybe as an artist, a photographer, a musician. So here's one with the camera. Here it says Nora Jones, and the N is connected to the J. Tim Mather. Again, it looks like a little stamp, but it has a T and an M. Here's one with with headphones and music, and then this one is for photography with the roll of film making the A. So again, more examples of a personal logo or monograms. Okay, so here are examples of students' work. So you can see that she used continuation with the circle around. So do not forget about continuation. It works really well for logos. Here's another one. I would also say this has continuation since the lines are all connected. Continuation with the rectangle. This one isn't as strong. This one's pretty strong. The proximity works really well with the N and L touching each other. Okay, so then, you're going to, after this lecture, when you're done, there's some videos talking about how to develop a logo. So that's one thing you're going to watch. And then you're going to switch to the next page and learn about the design process. And so I'm going to talk about that right here. So this is the design process. So I'll explain it, and then when you switch to the next page, there will be a worksheet connected, attached, that outlines the design process, and I will show you my sketchbook where I did that design process, so you have a visual of what that looks like. But pretty much what that is I have you make 5 designs. They made 6, but you make 5 designs, 6 designs, 7, 8. It doesn't matter. The more, the better, because then you have more options based off your ideas. So this was an airline, And so the company picked these 6 designs and to represent their airline, or not their airline, but somebody's airline. Then they talked to the owner or whoever is commissioning them about the designs, and based off the feedback, they picked one of the images, one of the logos to continue. Now, you're doing this with yourself, so you're going to pick why you want to make the logo, and you can make the logo for any reason. It can be for yourself, or maybe a friend, like a company that you would want to build or something like that. And you're going to pick who your audience is and what that audience needs, and or not what they need, but what you think that you want represented to that audience. So for me, I picked a logo that I was going to use for my business card, and so my audience were people interested in my artwork. And people that are interested in my artwork, I want them to be interested in certain visual aesthetic things. And so I just wrote those down, and then I tried to make a logo that represented those things, and then I picked my best one. So that's what they did here. They picked this one, and then you refined it. You change it and change it and change it till you come up with the one that you want. So they made this one, and then they switched it a little bit, right? It's very simple, but this little flare is down a little bit, then down. They changed some curves here and added this middle, changed some more curves, changed some more curves, and that's what they came up with. So that is your goal, is that you keep refining it till you find your favorite image or your favorite logo, and then you're done with it. That is the process of the design. That's the design process, and that's what you'll be doing. This is actually the hardest part. It takes the longest to find the logo you want, and then once you're done with that logo, then you need to expand it to a larger piece of paper, which we will talk about that process too. All right.